In March 2021, station Epsilon-9 sat completely isolated, positioned deep within Antarctica, far beyond the reach of standard supply routes. The facility was plunged into the perpetual darkness of the polar winter and battered by violent storms and negative 40-degree temperatures. Inside that frozen outpost lived a crew of 8 international researchers. Among them was a 29-year-old communications officer named Laura Bennett. Their shared mission was quiet and highly specific: to monitor and study subglacial activity miles beneath the ice sheet. This animated seismic waveform chart displays the anomaly that triggered their investigation. The station's sensors picked up a rhythm deep underground. It was a perfectly structured, repeating pulse occurring exactly every 47 seconds, originating nearly 2 kilometers directly beneath the floor of the facility. The crew assumed their sensors were breaking down in the extreme cold. But after running full system diagnostics, every piece of equipment returned a clean pass. The data was accurate. The rhythm was entirely too consistent to be natural tectonic shifting or shifting ice. It was an intentional pattern. Epsilon-9 was no longer a standard geological research station. It was a facility positioned directly over an active, unidentified intelligence. To find the source of the signal, lead geophysicist Dr. Henrik Solberg ordered the deployment of a deep-ground probe. Equipped with cameras and audio sensors, the heavy cylindrical device was lowered down a narrow 1,800-meter borehole that had been drilled years earlier. For hours, the control room watched the feed transmit layers of compacted snow and ice. But as the probe reached the bottom of the descent, it broke through the ice sheet entirely and entered a massive subglacial cavity. The walls of this open dome were unnaturally smooth and highly polished.
In the center of that vast space rested an enormous, indistinguishable mass. It was partially buried in the frozen floor, and the surface of the object was moving, expanding and contracting subtly beneath its icy shell, like a lung taking slow, deliberate breaths. 10 minutes after the object was discovered, the live video feed abruptly cut out. There was no error code or warning, just static. When the crew attempted to winch the probe back up to the surface, the thick tether came back completely severed. The heavy cable had been sliced cleanly through from below. Standard protocol dictated an immediate evacuation. Instead, curiosity took over. By choosing to stay and investigate an act of targeted aggression, the crew effectively trapped themselves with the entity they had just provoked. This line graph plots the rapid escalation of the underground pulse over the next 48 hours.
The 47-second intervals shrank to 30, then 15, and finally curved sharply downward into a flat line. The rhythm became a continuous, maddening vibration that shook the walls of the station without pausing. As the vibration became constant, the crew began experiencing severe psychological anomalies. Laura Bennett reported hearing footsteps in empty corridors, and while reviewing isolated communication logs, she intercepted her own voice repeating a sentence she had never spoken aloud: "It's not under us anymore." On the 5th day, an engineer named Marco went to inspect the generator room. He never returned. A search party found only his discarded jacket lying near an open maintenance hatch. The air rising from the tunnel was unusually warm, and it carried a sharp, metallic scent, resembling blood. Later that night, a catastrophic system failure struck the station. The monitors shut down, and the entire facility was thrown into complete darkness for 3 long minutes. By the time the emergency backup lights flickered on, 2 more crew members were gone. This time, the missing personnel left physical evidence. Deep, jagged scratch marks were gouged directly into the metal paneling of the hallway. The lines were long and uneven, tracking the path of someone trying desperately to hold on to the walls while being dragged away. The threat had shifted. The entity was no longer confined beneath the ice, and the station's perimeter had been breached. On the 7th day, the continuous shaking abruptly stopped. The violent vibration was replaced by an absolute oppressive silence throughout the station. That night, Laura awoke to a figure standing in the corner of her dim quarters. Its limbs were disproportionately long, and its face shifted rapidly, unable to hold a single shape. When it communicated, it made no physical sound. It simply placed the words directly into her mind. The telepathic message consisted of 3 short sentences. We learned. We are not below. We are inside. Laura fled her quarters, sprinting through the empty corridors until she reached the security control hub. She locked the door behind her and looked up at the active CCTV monitors, searching for any sign of the remaining survivors. The feeds showed human silhouettes walking the halls. They were shaped exactly like the crew, but they moved with unnatural, halting gaits, twitching as they navigated the facility. The anomaly isolated the crew. It studied their biology, replicated their physical forms, and systematically replaced them. 3 hours after Laura locked herself in the control room, Base Command received a final, automated audio transmission from Epsilon-9. It was Laura's voice, deeply distorted and layered with a secondary, older tone. It delivered a single directive: do not come here. It took months for a specialized recovery team to reach the site. When they finally breached the exterior doors, they found a completely intact, fully powered facility. There were no bodies, no blood, and no records of departure. The station was entirely devoid of life. The recovery team found exactly 1 piece of physical evidence. Carved frantically into the metal wall of the control room, in jagged, uneven lettering, was a repeating warning: it is not under the ice. Following the investigation, the incident was permanently classified. Station Epsilon-9 was sealed, its coordinates were scrubbed from Ball official databases, and the facility was erased from global maps. This is a modern topological radar map of the Antarctic ice sheet near those scrubbed coordinates. Satellites still occasionally detect a faint, irregular thermal pulsing anomaly hidden deep below the surface. Sometimes, for a brief moment, the pulsing completely pauses, as if the entity knows it is being monitored. Humanity's deep ice investigation exposed a presence that had been buried for eons. Whoever, or whatever, now wears the faces of the Epsilon-9 crew is simply waiting beneath the ice for the next visitor.